3, 2, 1.
Oh, yeah. Episode 2 of the Johnny Jigs podcast. You guys don't sing? Nobody sings?
Tapping bottom with Johnny Jigs.
From the bottom and from the top. That's what we're tapping.
No one knows what to say.
Now we're all talking.
Man, I am excited to be doing the second episode of the Johnny Jigs podcast. And joining me today is my dearest co-host, Christopher Doyle, and Adam. We do have a ton to talk about today. We're getting a little bit of a late start. We had a very nice visit with Captain Greg Mercurio of the Yankee Cap. It was pleasant to have him sitting here, and I think he's committed to coming on the show and being possibly our first guest if we don't squeeze in a few before he gets down here, but before the season starts. Today, we're going to talk about a few things. We've got the 55 species closure in the Atlantic Ocean, as well as we're going to dig into Wahoo, jigging Wahoo, trolling for Wahoo, catching Wahoo, eating Wahoo, everything Wahoo, because we freaking love Wahoo.
All year round, baby.
And then the next thing is the Gulf of Mexico could possibly be having a name change, which is pretty crazy. We're going to dig into that just a wee bit. And I think that about, one more thing. The speed limit. They were trying to put a speed limit on boats somewhere in the ocean to where we couldn't go over a certain speed. We're going to dig into that as well. So what do you think first, fellas?
Wahoo!
I'm going to go Wahoo.
Yeah, let's talk fishing.
So generally for us on the South Atlantic, as well as rolling into the Gulf, right now is the season. When the temperature starts getting cold, we know that the Wahoos are out, and we've caught our fair share of Wahoo on the jigs as well as trolling. And really, what's the best way to catch Wahoo? Jigging's not it, right?
No. It's the
Maybe
coolest
the most
way
fun.
to catch them.
Yeah,
Most
the
fun,
most fun
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, we've had instances. Somebody say that for me.
Subscribe.
Instances on the water where you run into a pallet, or I think one time we ran into a buoy offshore. So we were really looking for objects floating in the water, and we came across a buoy in the water. And if there's like a rope dangling from it or something's going down, that you can catch them on the jig. Captain George Gods from Unfathom, posted a picture of himself catching one on a Johnny Jig. And so they can be jigged, but there's some things that need to be done before you start jigging them. Chris, what's your main rigging whenever we're pulling up on a pallet or something?
Oh, man. Well, hold on here, because a Wahoo is, let's talk about it being a bucket list catch for the jig. It's an anomaly. It's not something that we are specifically targeting on a day-to-day basis. But I think that there's one opportunity to target a Wahoo, and that's what you just described. The floating object out on the ocean somewhere and them being underneath it. So if I were to rig to catch a Wahoo, that's the only situation that I would think about wiring up. And wiring up, I mean wire core assist hooks and quite possibly a cut of wire leader.
So we had this braided wire line from Hytina.
That was the stuff.
That was it, right? Because it had flexibility in it.
Devil wire.
Yeah. It was like Kevlar with wire strands
braided
going
together
through, and you could tie a uni knot with it. It was super easy to rig, uni to the fluoro, and then let it rip.
And it was very, very flexible, so it didn't influence the action of the jig really at all. If you're using not too kinky titanium or stainless wires, it's going to affect the jig's action, which is going to affect the amount of bites you get.
Right. But speed jigging is kind of where it's at. When you're going on the flotil, sure, do a few pitch and flutters, but at the end of the day, you're kind of ripping it up. Right?
If you're on a floating object and you're dropping for Wahoo, you're not going to slow pitch that object.
No.
You're speed jigging. You're dropping it through the column. You're going to try and rip it through to try and catch their attention.
Right. So technically a solid wire even could work, I would think, but you definitely need some kind of wire. The teeth are just too much.
Yeah, but if you ask me how I rig for Wahoo, it's how I rig for anything else, because I'm not rigging for Wahoo. I'm rigging for all the other stuff that we're going to catch, and if a Wahoo happens,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we don't put on wire assist hooks until we lose an assist hook.
right, then it's often too late.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is? Like you see your buddy get cut off and you're like, oh, dang, right? And then you got like this like hesitation. You're like, do I want to reel up my jig right now and re-rig it? And then a lot of time, I'm guessing 9 out of 10 times you're like, I'm gonna take my chances, right? So you just keep jigging, and then you're like, boom, jig gone, right? And I mean, lucky for us, we get a sweet deal on jigs, but other guys out there are like, you know what, reel up, man. You know, if you got to pay the full price for the jigs.
Well, it's always heartbreaking to lose a jig, regardless.
Yeah, but we've landed plenty of Wahoo on the jigs without wire, you know.
Yeah.
But the likelihood of you getting cut off versus landing the fish cut off is definitely more on the likely side of things.
And I've caught one on the jig, and that was during the drop.
Mm-hmm.
I've never actually caught a Wahoo while jigging. Now, I know that we've assumed that we are having Wahoo hit our jigs when we're dropping and the line starts raveling up on the surface. You're like, wait, I'm only 200 feet down. We're at 800 feet. What's going on? And then you start reeling in and there's nothing. Ghosted. You don't even feel the hit. There's no pull on the line whatsoever. Ghosted. And I mean, we assume at that point that it's Wahoo.
We're talking about a fish that can swim 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Right? So like he sees that jig and he comes full steam at it. All you feel is a little flicker of that line getting cut, and then they're gone.
Another crazy fact is Wahoo can actually survive on land.
Huh?
What?
I'm just kidding. That's a lie. I'm just kidding.
So why this time of the year are the Wahoo around? Really is a question for me. Like, I mean, I think we catch them year round. Like, there's never a time where we go out in the summer where we're not throwing the trollers out and trying to catch a Wahoo, and also catching a Wahoo. But this time of the year in particular, something changes to where the Wahoo are more prevalent. Yeah, they're around more. And I was hoping one of you guys would have looked that up and figured out why this time of the year. But I would have to imagine it has to do something with the bait this time of year. More of them are caught closer to the full moon, and then the other side of the moon as well. So a lot of guys are timing it with the moon whenever they're going out and targeting Wahoo.
Yeah. Moon, low light conditions, early morning,
Clarity.
I guess dusk.
Clarity of water was something I read as well.
Yeah, and then inlets too, right? Outgoing tide, cruising Hillsborough Inlet if you got low light conditions, 5-6 a.m. with the tide that just shifted outgoing. It's kind of stars are aligning just before the moon.
And they are surface feeding predators too, more than not. That's normally where I read that you found them. And that's, with trolling, when you're high speed trolling them, your lures are either on the surface or they're slightly below. And that's what they said. Surface or mid-water column, but not on the bottom as much.
Structures that attract bait fish, wrecks, oil rigs, weed lines, and floating debris. So it's like if you're trolling, you see those. I mean, there's tons of guys trolling out there while we're jigging right out of our home inlet, and you always see them. They're zigzagging, but they're going right over top of those wrecks that they know where they're at. Mm-hmm. Like they're hitting those X's on their screen that they know hold bait. So it all kind of ties together. So the same spots that we're going to be dropping down for grouper, snapper, and things like that. Why are those fish there? Because they hold bait, right? As well as the weed lines. Why do we fish the weed lines? It holds bait. It holds juvenile fish. It's holding something to eat, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we're looking for out there. But I would dare to say jigging's not your jam. If you're going out for Wahoo, like don't go out for Wahoo with just your jigging outfit, right?
No, but how many times do we say, what if it's a Wahoo?
Yeah.
As soon as the rod bends, what if it's a Wahoo?
Well, every cutoff is a Wahoo, right?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
Crazy story. We took out this guy who was helping us build our website back in the beginning of Johnny Jigs. On our way out the inlet, he looks over at me and he's like, I've never caught a fish before. And I'm like, well, what kind of fish that haven't you caught before, right? Like I didn't even understand that statement. You know, as a Florida boy growing up here, like fishing has just been a part of my life. That was it. I lived for it since day one, since I could walk. And I'm like, what do you mean you haven't? And he's like, no, I've never caught a fish at all ever in my. I'm like, not even like with a dip net in a fish tank. He's like, never, ever, 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 right? So we get out. You know, we got him jigging. We got him on a pretty basic setup that he can't mess up. You know, very entry level jigging setup, and he hooks up on a fish, and we're all kind of like, all right, good job, dude, you're doing great, you know, not paying any attention to him whatsoever, and we're just doing our thing. And then I'm kind of paying attention to the runs out the corner of my eye, and I'm like, man, I think this dude's got something pretty good. And I remember Will Crane from our team, it was like, nah, don't worry about it. Just keep jigging, dude. Just keep jigging, right? And I'm like, no, you know what? I think I'm gonna reel up and tend to this dude and see what he's got. And man, he freaking pulled in a 60-pound wahoo, his first fish ever. And I would dare to say that he's never caught a fish ever since. He finished on a high note.
Yeah, I would retire
for
after
sure.
that for sure.
And so they eat the jig, man. They eat the jig. They definitely eat the jig. It's 100% sure.
Remember, I think it might have been Will when we were out fishing with Chris Huff in the Gulf, and we had wahoo coming up to the surface, hitting our jigs, nosing our jigs on the surface of the water when we were pulling up, and I would S-turn them and X-turn them, and I was swimming around. The wahoo were running up, swimming. I mean, it was incredible to see.
Yeah.
Right at the side of the boat.
Wow.
No lies. You can ask Will. No lies.
They school up. I mean, there's some pretty wild dudes that are out there free diving and shooting them with spears too. Have you guys ever seen that?
Mm-hmm.
They've got like CDs almost, like they string them together, like they call them flashers. Put a weight on the bottom of it. I'm not sure exactly how they do it, but I know that they drop these flashers down and it attracts attention. They get over top of the school, and then dude free diving, they dive down and freaking blast a wahoo with a spear gun. Like, and that's pretty rad. Like, I don't even think they stopped the boat completely. Like, these dudes are like jumping in and then
they're diving
down and then
with a PVC spear gun too. Like, some of these guys are wild.
Yeah, you got to respect that for sure. But the best way to catch wahoo,
High speed
trolling,
hands down, right? Hands down.
in the Bahamas.
In the Bahamas. Yeah. Oh, it's incredible in the Bahamas. I mean, that's a whole another level. But high speed trolling, what's the speed? It's like 18,
12 to
15 to
18.
12,
Yeah.
12 to 18. And it's like, how did somebody figure that out, right?
Go faster.
Yeah. Like for me, like I just picture like a bunch of guys on the boat. We're like, we're going in. I don't feel like reeling in the gear. Just gun it, right?
Yeah. My wife's waiting for me at the dock, but I still want to fish.
Yes, you high speed fish these freaking lures all the way in. You're like, holy crap, we got a wahoo. She's gonna have to wait, right? But how do you figure that out? And dude, you want to know who it was? Some Florida boys, man. Yeah. Florida boys throw down, man. They figure some stuff out, right? They're clever guys. So really, like, accredited to it. And I was looking this up. In 1995, a guy named Captain Ron Schatman really was accredited for it. I think there was like a bunch of things leading up to that. You know, I'm sure there's some other names that are involved in really making that happen. But this dude started just winning tournaments, man, and he figured some stuff out and like kept it tight to his vest.
He's out of Miami, right?
They say South Florida here. I think he was north of us, actually. You know what's kind of cool about it is that like this has been handed to us. Like, here you go, guys. You know, here's high speed trolling. Here's the lures to use. Here's the wire to put on. Go catch some fish and enjoy. You know what I mean? It was figured out for us. Like, we didn't have to figure anything out, which was pretty nice. But I guess I still got a lot of questions about high speed trolling though. Like, really, what is the optimal speed? What's the optimal wire length? What's the optimal wire size? You know, planer. You can't high speed planer troll, right? The planer slows. It's too much drag on the line. So it's got to be a diving lure. And like two of the biggest ones that come to mind is the Yozuri Bonita. And then there's the Nomad.
They got a bunch of them: Mad Scad, Mad Max, DTX.
Yeah, and then color. What is the color?
They vary in all the different colors for the lures, but I feel like we sell that hot pink Anything with a flashy, hot color seems to really do well with them.
I know that when we were on the Yankee Cap, the mates were always like, pink, gotta go pink. It's gotta be the pink one. But I've fished that purple one many, many times and caught not only wahoo, but yellowfin tuna on it as well.
Or the white one with the tiger stripes.
Oh, the white one with the tiger stripes. Yeah. But it's got to dive down. There's some that just get kind of wonky in the water. Like it's got to stay down and it does that little wobble to the left and to the right and doesn't pop out of the water. That's kind of the biggest thing.
Yeah. I mean, when you're even reeling in an empty lure and you have that big lip on it and you're high speed trolling and it hits the surface. I think it's happened to everybody. Slingshot. You know,
Yeah,
that
don't
lure
fish those
slings
on
back.
head boats.
Well, yeah. Oh, you're not allowed to fish those on a lot of head boats. They won't even let you use big lip diving lures. They don't want any of the lips.
So for me, I'm going Yozuri Bonita
That's it.
every time.
I love
Yep.
it.
I'm going,
Pink.
and then for the wahoo on the jig, I'm going torpedo. I don't really care what color it is. I'm just going to use one of our torpedo jigs and rip it through the water.
Yeah. I've gotten 3 wahoo on the jig, and each one was caught differently, and each one was on a completely different jig. So, I mean, there's the randomness of a wahoo strike. But first one was on a descent. Second one was actually pitching off the bottom in like 300 feet at like 5:30 in the morning, off the bottom, bang. And the third one was on a straight quick retrieve up, just trying to get my jig back up. But 3 totally different ways.
Have you guys ever doubled up while jigging with wahoo? Because they're supposed to be solitary fish.
No.
I'd like to.
They hunt in packs.
I'd like to.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Now that we've talked about it, it's going to happen. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. And I just want to thank our sponsor for today, Yankee Cap. It is a head boat that leaves out of Key West, Florida, that can put you on some of your bucket list fish. He's definitely put me on a lot of my bucket list fish. So thank you to our sponsor, the Yankee Cap today. You could check them out at yankeecap.com.
In the hustle and bustle of everyday life, it's easy to forget what truly matters. That moment when you're out on the water, surrounded by nature. It's a chance to unwind, to connect. But what if you can make those moments even more unforgettable? Introducing the Trinity Slow Pitch Jigging Rod by Johnny Jigs. Designed to enhance your fishing experience, the Trinity Rod delivers unparalleled sensitivity and power. Make every drift count. With the Trinity Slow Pitch Jigging Rod, you're not just fishing, you're connecting.
Chris, I bet you won't call Captain Ron.
I got his number.
You won't.
You
won't.
I mean, who are we to talk about wahoo?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's give him a call.
Oh, can you imagine if he picked up?
Oh, that'd be freaking
I got his
awesome.
number. Let's do it. See if we can get Captain Ron Schatman on the line.
The OG of high speed trolling.
Ask him if he's ever jigged one.
Oh, that's a good question, right? That is it. Let's see if he picks up. That's the question. Come on, Captain.
Yeah,
Captain Ron,
yeah, you got me.
can you hear me? This is Johnny Jigs Tackle Company, and you are live with Christopher Doyle and Adam, and we're talking about wahoo, and we figured maybe possibly you might pick up the phone. So we're pretty excited actually to have the guy who was really one of the pioneers of high speed trolling on the line with us.
Well, there you go. It'd be fun to talk to you about it a little bit.
Yeah. We were talking and we're like, how do you come up with the idea of high speed trolling? And I couldn't help but think like it was like storming and then you're just like, oh, we got to get in because it's raining. Who wants to reel in wants to reel everything in and you just leave them.
It could have come about that way because I think things happen in fishing that, where you started almost a whole new technique or whatever by accident. I mean, that's what fishing's all about, just putting in the time and seeing what works, what works best. Anyway, it's kind of interesting because going way, way back, wahoo fishing was pretty much about a 12-knot fishery, 10 to 12 knots. It was a fast fishery to begin with. And what we did is we just jacked it up because it was basically a competitive move because we were fishing the tournaments. And once we realized that really the first guy down the edge when they were eating was going to be the winner, that's basically how it developed. To wake up one morning and instead I have to pick at 18 or 19 knots, which we did.
And then so it's first guy to the edge is the first guy to get the wahoo. But is there
Go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, like when you speed it up, you're covering a lot more ground as well. Is there some validity to that? And to you
Well,
increase your
there's,
chances.
there's spots if you're familiar with the banks in the Bahamas. I mean, high speed fishing works here off the Florida coast and the Gulf of Mexico and up in the Northeast, whatever. We're going to catch them because they're fast, predatory fish. The idea in the Bahamas is what made it simple, really, was that you know right where they're going to be, right along the edge. It's not like blue marlin fishing where we got to pound square miles of water to get a bite. So we knew that they're laying along the edge day to day. They were in different locations, and it just made sense to get down the edge. And once we realized that you had to be first in line to get the bite, you would do better. Not that other boats might have been in with you and broke it up, but the bottom line is the high speed fishing, as far as the tournaments went, that took over the game. Before we went at 7 knots.
How long did you keep this under your hat before everybody else found out?
How about I never tried?
That's
It did me a lot of good to bring people in and teach them. Any of the guys that fished with me over the years, they all became good fishermen because we were very simple and safe about it all. I watched a few boats come in over the years where people cut pretty bad. And we had a method of putting them in the boat in a few minutes and going about our business for the day. There were tournaments. Well, I think we set the record for poundage in Bimini for 3 days of fishing, 783 pounds. I think.
holy smokes.
We were doing, 2, 3, 400 pounds of wahoo a day. I had a tournament out of, Treasure. Is it Treasure? Boat Harbor. It's at Boat Harbor, where we probably had 500 pounds of wahoo, over 40 that the tails were bit off up in Moraine Channel and, off the Abaco Keys. We still won the tournament with 750 pounds. So we had
Wow.
somewhere around 12 or 1,300 for 3 days of fishing.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fantastic. We got lucky. We saw, good times. What changed the tournaments for us, basically, was that they put the weight limits. You can only weigh 5 fish, 3 biggest fish, 5 big ones, and that was it. Well, that took the skill out of the game.
Right.
I had a friend of mine caught 17 wahoo. He probably had, 600, 700 pounds, and he didn't even make a nickel. And a guy with 5 fish won the tournament. It just took the skill. Now you made it a luck game. Being a professional blue marlin fisherman, I never looked at this game any luck. We always wish our friends luck in the morning on the way out. But the bottom line is we meant business when we went fishing, no stone unturned. Just that simple.
Captain, what about the lures that you used back then as opposed to the lures that they have now with the big lip spoons? And what were you using then that's different from now?
Well, let me go to where we started before we went high speed fishing. The bait of choice was basically an islander over a double hook torque belly. Anybody listening that goes back that far knows that. And even today, that's still a great bait. What happened was we had the boys from Bermuda come down for the winter tournaments in Bimini. In those days, it was only the tournament in Bimini, 1 or 2 of them. And they would, they're being, men of the sea. They'd take the run down with their own boats, their own charter boats, and come down for, the winter and have some fun down here, And believe it or not, they were using sea witches, a skirt, and a 10-0 hook, one hook. And the whole rig might have cost $6 on a good day, okay? Well, when we realized that you really didn't need bait anymore to fish for them, and we started going to lures. Well, at that time, I had boats that had 5 and 6 dozen islanders on them, and I said, what am I going to do with these? So I went home, I took the islanders or stuck a double skirt under them, and we moved our double hook rig into that particular lure. It was as simple as it got. We already had the islanders and we already had skirts. So that's what we fish with, that and small little darts and jets and stuff like that. You can't imagine how many of the fish we caught literally swallowed the bait because it was small enough to swallow.
Hmm.
Now we're dealing with a lot more bigger and heavier lures, which, in my opinion, is a bit of a drawback. First of all, you know how the Wahoos crack at the boat. Well, if he had a 3-pound lure hanging in his face, 2.5 feet from his head, and he's cracking, all he's going to do in many cases is rip a hook out. So we stayed basically as light as we could. Now, don't forget, once we picked up the speed, a couple of things had to happen. And, that meant adding, a little more weight to the system. So we used our leader, 15, 20 foot, and our trolling lead, and kept the lure light and basically small to medium. The only reason I ever bumped up the size of the lure, which went from, just an Islander and ballyhoo size to the next size up, another couple inch bigger, was to get a pair of 11-0 hooks in my lure instead of the 10-0. Out in the Abacos, a lot of days the fish were all 50 and up. So, it meant having a little bigger set of hooks. Caught fewer fish in the tournaments, and the bigger fish added the weight to it. So that was just another move, because of the competition.
That's pretty incredible.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
That's why it's incredible. Yeah, it's simple.
And the fact that you just kind of shared it with, I was just talking to the guys. I'm like, we've basically had high speed trolling handed to us on a silver platter, and it was like, this is how you do it. Go get them, boys. We didn't have to figure anything out. You were out there, trying this, trying that, and trying to figure things out.
Yeah, I'll give you a good tip here. I see the guys working perpendicular in and out on the drop off a lot of times. Where they'll get in shallow and turn and come back off and try, maybe to get a bite coming off the edge. Well, we pretty much, once we realized the fish laid on the edge, it was a race down the edge, period. And the interesting thing is that I would spend my day pretty much with my nose in my depth recorder, because if I got in too shallow, I wasn't going to get a bite. And if I got in too deep, I wasn't going to get a bite. So all that time that these guys are going in and out is nothing but a waste of time. And, and that's, the bite goes off for so much time, in a day. They bite in it, whether the tide's going in or out, it doesn't matter. You're on their eating schedule, and you want to make the best of it. So when the bite turns on, you pretty much work push the tree in that area. That's all you can do.
That is a good nugget. That is a good nugget. Yeah.
So again, I see these guys just going in and out. They're out in 800-900 feet. Well, you're not going to get a bite out. And maybe somebody did, so now that's the way to do it. You know what I'm saying? Things happen by accident. And when they happen by accident, sometimes we use that as a success. We count that as a success rather than, not that. If you caught in other words, if you went dolphin fishing and caught a broadbill, well, you're not going broadbill fishing like you went dolphin fishing the last time.
Right.
But you got lucky.
Right. Yeah. An accident is a success, but the question is, can you repeat it? Is it repeatable? And,
That's right.
And obviously we talk a lot about the jig here, and you got to say that, Wahoo is not a species that we target on the jig, but it's a species that happens on the jig.
There's something more to that. I don't want to lose the thought. Under these schools of bonitas and tunas are where those wahoos are.
Correct.
So that's where the jig belongs.
And we can get the jig there. Yeah.
It's hard to get through them.
To get through the bonitas and the tunas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've caught thousands of wahoo trolling. Have you gotten one on the jig before?
You know what? I can't. I really don't. I'm not a. I was a.
Interview's over.
I blew marlin fish going back into the early 70s. I got wrapped up with a species of fish that I chased my whole life around the world. And I don't mind telling you, we only really got into wahoo fishing because it was something to do in between marlin fishing season. And, once I started fishing more in the Bahamas and saw how good that fishery was, that's why I promoted it. I said, wow, that was a well-kept secret. Believe it or not, it was a well-kept secret, as to how good it really was. You just didn't see that many people going over during the time of the year that they were so plentiful. I mean, I had days in tournaments we caught 40 wahoo.
Wow.
We talking like the 90s?
Yeah, going back in the 90s and into the early 2000s. I quit the tournaments in 2000. We won it in the 98, 99, and the 2000 seasons there. It was a lot of fun, though. I'll tell you the best part were the guys, because the guys that came in to do this and were the regulars, they were just fantastic fishermen. You had to have a special love for this fishery. This isn't oh, okay, tomorrow's going to be nice, we're going. Well, if you went the wrong way with the wrong weather, you were in trouble. You were going to get a beating coming home. It was something that took the guys really had to have a love for it, and the bigger boats. Over the years, the smaller boats got into it because of their speed, which changed the game again. But they saw some of the winter days that I had to fish in, they wouldn't have been able to fish at all. So that was a plus and a minus.
That's the one thing about tournaments. Sometimes you catch yourself in that weather that you just really don't want to fish in, but you're there and you got to do it.
Yeah. In the 90s, there weren't really any small. They might have had an odd boat come in, but that was when the competition was fantastic. I mean, again, you had the guys from Bermuda, Alan Card, Alan De Silva. I mean, these guys got 15 blue marlin over 1,000 pounds under their belt already, and they're fishermen. And this was the fishery that we all loved. I love seeing the guys put them up. If I might just mention the difference in the east side and the west side of the Bahamas, as we start getting into later in the winter and into the spring, you're going to find the big fish showing up more and more on the east side. Now, the Jacksonville and St. Augustine area produces a tremendous amount of big wahoo. Those are fish coming from the east side of the Bahamas.
Really?
Separate population, and they're coming off to Africa with the tunas.
Oh, okay.
80 to 100 pounders.
I'm going to tell you a story I haven't even thought of in a while. Back in, I guess it was around 72, 73, I was running a charter boat at the Castaways dock here in Miami Beach. And the owner of the boat, the captain, I was his mate, he wound up taking a job on a tuna purse seiner off the west coast of Africa for either like Bumblebee or Starkiss, one of the big companies. And he went away for 6 months. His son was waiting for me during that time, and we went about our business. Well, one day Tony shows back up in town, and he's got a box full of pictures that he brought back. And not only was he showing us the holes of tuna and the boat and how it works and the winches, but he showed me pallets coming off out of the fish hole that were frozen wahoos. They were 7-footers. They weighed 150 to some 200 plus pounds.
Wow.
And they were coming off stacked like cordwood on pallets and cargo nets frozen. There were fish that probably 240, 250 in that bunch. This is a separate population. They live with those tunas. So back in the years, 50 some years, I knew that those wahoos were coming from the east, from east.
That's how you figured it out.
Going into the 80s, into the early 80s, a mate of mine was working on a big boat that they were fishing out of San Salvador. They had bays with 10, 11 wahoo over 100 pounds back then.
Wow. Wonder what is the record?
183 out of Cabo in 2005.
A young lady on a half-inch charter with her grandson.
No way. No way.
Caught that fish. It was the first time she went fishing.
Wow, that's crazy.
Absolutely amazing.
That's fishing.
Hey, Captain Ron. So I do have to wrap it up here, but I got to ask you a question. First off, we're so grateful to have you here. You're in our book, you're a rock star here. So thanks for coming on and talking to us about.
Just an old retired fisherman.
You're a rock star to us. So
Do you still make your own Wahoo rigs and sell them?
Yeah, the hook sets we make.
Custom bait company?
Yeah, R&S Custom Baits. Yeah, I had a bait company. Back in. Look, I was on the line for 7 years. I'm no angel. Yeah. I did that, and when I quit, I had a bait company. We sold 100 stores. There were rigs, ballyhoos, mullet, mackerel, you name it, trip. And that's going back through the 80s into the 90s. And we started a lure business, R&S Lure at the time, and incorporated in '84. And I built marlin lures, while a bit at all. Now I've kind of pulled back all the competition. That's really not my mark.
Okay.
Like I say, I was lucky enough to get Shimano to wholesale with us.
So here's the big question, and we're gonna wrap it up with this. If you were to go high speed trolling for Wahoo right now, what color lure are you putting out?
Believe it or not, I always liked the natural color of black and silver.
Black and silver. That will be forever my favorite.
Oddly enough.
Yeah.
You'll see it's more consistent, even in a blue and white sometimes, which is always old faithful, black and red. But tell your gang that they want to put out a mixed spread in the morning when they start. If they're eating black and red, feed them 3 more.
Okay.
Love it.
That's the
Copy
way to
that.
do it.
Thank you, Cap.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Pleasure, guys.
You're the man.
Likewise.
Take care.
That was awesome. That was awesome. I need a 5-minute break after that.
Yeah.
Super cool. There was an announcement the other day, pretty sure it was coming across everybody's social media feed, that President Trump, who's officially the president today, is not considering, he says he's going to do it, going to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And listen, you got to think about like as my Johnny Jigs being our brand, right? Like I will rep my brand through and through, right? Like I'm going to wear Johnny Jigs everything. I got Johnny Jigs belt and I'm screaming it from the mountaintops. And I feel the same way about my country, right? Like I'm going to rep my country. So anything that's got the name America in it,
Works.
It's got a ring to me. You know what I mean? So I want to play this clip for you guys where Donald Trump, he's like at the podium with the microphone and the whole ordeal. And he's going to basically say what he's doing. So let's let that clip play if you could, Dev. No.
We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name.
What a beautiful name.
So, guys, we have special guest, President Donald Trump, with us here today. How do you feel about Johnny Jigs?
They're the best. Okay, let me tell you. Johnny Jigs are the best.
I did the clap button.
Nothing's better, And I was just thinking about this, John, I was thinking about this, John and Chris. I think I'm going to change the name of the Great Wall of China to the Great Wall of Fauci.
How do you do? I
don't
feel
know.
like so many people got these Donald Trump impersonations down. Like I just can't do it. I'm not even.
Have you tried one?
Dude, it's not. You did pretty good too, Chris.
That was the first time I ever tried one, I think.
Hands down, the best Trump impression is from Shane Gillis.
Joe, you're an idiot. Please stop. How do you feel about gay rights? I like it, but they're going a little overboard with the dancing.
Oh, he slays it.
Dude,
Hilarious.
my uncle and nephews met him last night.
Really?
Bruh.
He's at the national championship game, which is tonight. Ohio State, Notre Dame.
Major jealous.
Go
Shane Gillis is a
Buckeyes.
huge Notre Dame fan. I got a picture on my phone of the boys with Shane Gillis last night.
Wow,
Boys.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Were they dropping jigs with the boys?
Young Johnny's repping his Johnny Jigs hat.
Yeah, man.
Sure is.
What?
So, do you think that they'll be able to change this name? Like, I mean, I think it takes a lot. I think it takes like
There's
what-
more.
what I was reading was it's the Board on Geographic Names, the BGN, really needs to like approve this, but then getting it accept internationally as well is a totally different thing. So granted, we could change it probably a little easier within the US, but then getting everyone else to say that
No one else will recognize it. No.
it's the
But
goal.
Obama did it. Obama did it with, what was it? He did it with Mount McKinley.
Oh yeah,
Because it was named Mount McKinley in 1901, and then he changed it in 2015 to name it Denali.
Yeah, I read about that.
You know,
So they may not recognize it, but
No.
I don't know. It's still a cool idea.
America.
Hey, here's a cool fact. I know for a fact that Donald Trump Jr. has caught a fish on a Johnny Jig.
No
Yep.
way.
We have picture evidence of that, which is pretty cool. So we just for the sake of keeping their privacy, but we have a buddy who takes them out fishing from time to time, and for a fact, Mr. Donald Trump Jr. has caught a fish on a Johnny Jig, which is
Reef donkey.
pretty rad to the bone, if you ask me.
Anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it. Anybody can do
And
it.
we have a friend, Captain Adam, who has a charter boat program out of the Gulf, right? And what's
Oh, that's right. He's got Gulf of America Outfitters. So, Joe VT is his captain, who's a big famous YouTube guy.
great channel.
Probably-
Favorite channel. It's my favorite channel.
Probably one of
Love
the
Jofi.
fishiest freaking YouTube guys I've ever met, right? So runs the boat for Adam, but Adam has Gulf of American Outfitters. And so when President Trump announced that he's going to possibly change the name, all of a sudden his phone starts blowing up, right? And he calls me up. He's like, dude, Johnny, he's like, I gotta make some shirts. I gotta do this. He's like, my phone will not stop because of the name changes. It just happens to be the name of his outfit. But I actually had the opportunity to fish with him and Landshark Outdoors, Ryan Morey and Joe VT on their trip out of Louisiana. And dude, let me tell you something. That fishery is incredible, man. It is. Oh, bro.
It's the hot spot right now.
Dude, I've got a charter book this year. We got to see who's on the lineup, but it's going down. Like, I don't want to fish anywhere else, man.
Free.
Adam's checking his schedule over here. He's free. It's hard to get in the rotation, Adam. I got to tell you, it's hard to get into the rotation. But, I mean, any thoughts on the name change? I mean, like, what's the?
I don't know. It's the same water body, you know, same area.
Yeah,
It's a name.
I
Got
think
American
the same
in
as
it.
President Trump. It's a branding thing. You know what I mean? Like he loves his brand, and America is it now, dude. As the president of the U.S., better be your brand. You know?
Yeah.
But, so that's kind of a cool thing. So there's a few other things, guys, that we were gonna get to today, and one of them that I want to just touch on quickly was there was discussions back in 2023 that they were going to regulate the speed that boats could travel, and it was all in an attempt to preserve the fishery. There was like some whales.
The North Atlantic right whale.
Okay. They were basically saying like during the spawning season of this whale that they needed boats to slow down. Then they kind of went to like year round. So boats were not going to be able to go over 11.5 miles an hour, which
In
is
the open ocean.
which is 10 knots, right? 10 knots. That's it.
All for what, though? How many of those whales were even killed per year by a nautical craft? I'll tell you, 4.5. And their estimation was that whenever a nautical boat would hit one of these whales, if it would slow down to 11 miles an hour, it would go from a 90% chance to an 80% chance of killing it.
You got the facts.
Yeah.
My cousin's a whale. I know all this stuff. too.
I mean, statistically, it sounds like it's kind of not worth it.
It's a little bit of a stretch.
You know who would be really
a lot of it.
You know who would be really pissed off about this? Captain Ron Schatman. No high speed Wahoo trolling
We
for
need at
you,
least 12.
my friend, right? Like, I mean, could you imagine traveling somewhere at 10? I mean, I granted the big boats do it. Like for us guys in our center consoles, and it's not, I mean, we're going 25 knots, 30 knots. You know, some of the big boys will really get up there in speed, but 10 knots.
So the limit was going to be for vessels that were 35 to 65, I believe.
Okay.
So there was a limit in there.
Okay.
And they were using different technologies to monitor it. How about this? In 2022 and 2023, NOAA assessed $950,000 in civil penalties for vessels exceeding the regulations. And there were only 56 cases. That means it's an average of $17,000 per ticket.
Oh my gosh. The violations could result in fines up to $20,000 and prison time. Like literally you can go to prison for
running your boat on a plane.
yeah.
So less than 1.2% of deaths per year on the right whale are from boat collisions. And in the past couple years, they've been increasing the whale population. The right whale population has even been increasing by 4% a year. It's just bogus.
Crazy.
It's bogus.
You know, when you're running 10 knots, I don't think you're up on a plane. Yeah, I don't know when it starts. Depends on the hull, but it's like kind of 12, 15 knots, I think, where you jump up, but you're displacing very little water as opposed to semi-displacing water with your hull. Aren't you digging that outboard a little further?
Yeah, talk about whacking that whale.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd rather bump him than whack him.
Right.
Trim tabs all the way down,
Yeah.
trying to figure it out, sucking fuel. But so am I right in saying that they shut this down, right? It's not gonna happen.
Correct. So there are times of the year that it is active, like you were saying, during these mating seasons, but they were trying to push it for a full 7 months straight, from my understanding.
Yeah, it's
And they got
crazy.
shut down.
I didn't even give that much brain power. I just, kind of laughed and wrote it off in my head. No, how could that ever happen?
Yeah. I remember when they announced it,
Yeah.
we did talk about it a little bit, but we didn't dig into it too much. So I guess I think that's a win for us that they shut that down for sure. So another topic of shutting things down. So I know it seems like every day it's something that they want to shut down on us. And I don't want this podcast to be, centered on regulation, stuff like that, but we need to talk about it, right? There needs to be a conversation. And I think that the more that we talk about it, the better understanding that people will have, and we can get to better solutions instead of just identifying the issues and stopping everything. We have to understand the full picture from everybody's side is important for, I think, the fishery, the economy, and everybody involved. But so there's another discussion. It's with NOAA, and it's a secretarial amendment where they're basically going to shut down 55 species. And from my understanding, and guys, you could chime in to correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding that the whole premise of this amendment is to basically stop throwing back dead red snapper. So they're going to shut down everything else in order to save the red snapper. That's what I read as I'm digging through this closure. Is it's all an attempt to save one fish. So shut everything else down to save one fish. And I don't know that is the solution. I mean, we've got to figure something out here. There's got to be some greater minds than the people that are working on this that can really come up with some better ideas. But
like de-escalating tools.
Yeah, so it's
Descending tools.
Descending tools.
Yeah.
right,
Same difference.
educating people,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you use a descending tool?
They did release, to where they made it a rule that people
Mhm.
had to use descending tools.
Rigged and ready to go.
Rigged and ready to go. And then this was years ago too, but they weren't enforcing it, right? So then I think it was like a year ago where they really said, okay, we're going to enforce this, but there was no education on the tool that came with it. So they were kind of, granted they were giving it away for free, which was pretty cool for them, not us who were selling it whenever they started giving it away for free. But they started giving away for free, but where's the education in it, right?
Well, how are they planning to enforce that? Or are they going to come up to everybody's boat and?
When they do.
Okay.
When they
Which
do.
you've seen happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I can get it, but I mean, come on.
So when your boat gets boarded, if you were bottom fishing, there's a lot of gray area. You're right, Deb. There's a lot of gray area. So if you were bottom fishing, and they can look at your tracks on your screen, whatever the case may be, if you have snapper or a grouper in the cooler, they can say you were bottom fishing. Where's your descending tool, right? So that's a way that they can enforce it. So it can be done. And honestly, if you're a good shepherd of the sea, right? If you're somebody who cares about this fishery, you care about the fish, you care about the future for your children, grandchildren, then you should be using a descending device, you know. And I've been on boats where these guys aren't doing it, man. I'm talking about charter boats where these guys aren't doing it. You know, we don't air out people's dirty laundry, but you know what? I think it's time for us as anglers. If you're on a charter boat, if you're on a head boat and you see fish floating away and you see no effort to use a descending device, let them know.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Get snappy. Stand your ground a little bit and let these people know that, hey, what you're doing is wrong and you're part of the problem.
We always bring ours with us now everywhere we go.
Yeah.
We always have them, you know, and they are talking about educating a little bit. They have returnemright.org is a website. That's RETURNEMRIGHT.org. If you go on there, there is a small, maybe 5-10 minute section of education that you have to go through. But once you complete that, they actually send you the whole kit. They'll send you the clamping device. They'll send you the poking device that you can pull down and a 3-pound weight. Everything's free. And it's all by a government grant trying to help out with this type of issue. I mean, I think, you know, we need to do more like this than just limit it. There needs to be more education. There needs to be more ways to get these devices out. If we're going to make it mandatory for people to have them, well, let's get them in their hands. And that's why I like how Return 'em Right does it, because it's not anything from us except a little bit of learning, which is good because there were a couple things when I went through that I learned that I didn't even know on where to poke the fish first if you didn't have the proper descending tool. With
We
clamps.
carry descending tools.
Correct. I'm the worst
online
salesman
in
ever. I know. Worst salesman ever.
You know,
Yeah, go to Return 'em Right.
Yeah.
Or
Not
buy the Johnny Jigs.
Well, they give you the see you later hook, the basic see you later.
Yeah, they
hook,
give you see you later. They give you the clamping,
but
and
they don't
the
give you
weight.
the pressure
Nope.
release.
They give you all.
They
free.
give you the $60 one.
They give it all. It's $100 and some value, and they give it
Wow.
for free.
So wait, you get the see you later hook and the descending tool?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
For
And a
free.
3-pound weight for free.
yeah, we should just
Well,
start
actually,
giving
we're
ours
all
away
paying
too.
for it. It's a government grant.
Yeah.
It's funded by a government grant, so we're technically paying for it. So if you haven't done it, go do it because you're paying for it. Right?
I've heard guys say, "Oh, that doesn't work," and the fact of the matter is, it's the best option, and they have proven it. The guys who make the tool have proven it. Sequelizer by sending video cameras down with the fish, and you could see like fish that are really suffering from barotrauma. Their eyeballs are sticking out, their gills are popping out, and as this fish descends, you watch everything just kind of go back into place. So, and then swim away. Right, swim away. So now, are they following the fish for the next 5 years to see how he's doing? No, you know what I mean. But at that moment, it looks like the fish is doing a heck of a lot better than floating on the surface.
Yeah.
Right. So does it work? I believe so.
Better
Isn't
than
there-
getting chewed up by a shark on the surface.
Isn't there another way to descend a fish though, like with a hook and a big weight? I'm pretty sure I've seen this happen one time, and we actually opted to stop them and be like, no, we have these. We think these are more ethical. Isn't that another?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. So venting the fish was like a big deal for a long
I
time.
think that's what it was.
And you had to have a venting tool. But the downside to that is like you're jabbing a hole in the fish, right? And who knows where exactly to jab the hole in the right place. There are some captains out there that are real good at it, but for the average recreational fisherman going out there and, you know, on a weekend, you know, they're maybe out 3 times a year or something, they're not going to know how to use that tool and stick that tool in properly. You know, they would have to spend some time educating themselves beforehand. But there's a second option. So the great one is the one that hooks onto the lips and then releases at a certain depth, at a certain fathoms, right? So this tool knows what depth it's at, it lets go of the fish, good to go. And there's different settings on the bottom of the tool that you could spin it to release at different depths depending on where you're fishing. But the other one that we were using for quite some time, which is still a great tool, is it's a little almost like a hook that hooks into the fish's mouth. You send the fish down, and as soon as you get down to the depth that you think that the fish is good, you basically just set up on the thing, and the fish can go.
Yeah, it's tied off at the rounded section, so the weight is pulling it down when it's going down, and then when you pull on the hook, you actually are pulling the hook back up
It looks
directly
like a
out of the fish's
big,
mouth.
thick paper clip almost.
Yeah.
So back to the closure though. So if this is all an attempt to shut down the red snapper, like I wonder how endangered is this species, right now. I watched a YouTube video from the Key West waterman the other day, and he went out commercial fishing for red snapper, right? And he's got a spinner, or just a pure Key West spinner. We use spinners. So South Florida boys, we love our spinners. He's not using electric reels or anything. And he's like, I'm going to go out commercial fishing for the day. He's by himself. Dude's by himself. There's nobody with. He's just got his camera. He's talking to the camera, and he catches over 100 pounds of red snapper. And this was, I think, last July when the season was open for commercial guys, because he's got a commercial license. Basically, at the end of the video, he's like, there's not many other fish that I can come out here and just target them and know that I'm going to catch my commercial limit for the day. He's like, but this fish is one of them. He's like, so how bad can it possibly be for the population of this fish? So if we're shutting down all of these species in order to save the red snapper, something needs to be assessed again. And I can't tell you how many times over and over and over I've heard it from very respectable fishermen who are on the water every day say, this fish is not endangered anymore.
How many days did we get down here last year?
One day.
They extended it in the Gulf though. Louisiana and the Gulf got more.
Yeah.
Not here.
No, you talk to guys that are up in the northern Florida. They'll come to the shop and they'll be talking about how they're trying to get away from the red snapper. They want to get the other fish, but there's so many red snapper that there's nothing they can do.
I just want to go fishing.
Like, yeah, let's get tight.
Well, guys, that's about all the time we have for Tapping Bottom with Johnny Jigs today. Thank you, Christopher Doyle.
You're welcome.
Adam.
No problemo.
Episode 2 in the books. This is fun.
It's great.
It's nice to have a place to talk instead of just being focused on fishing. So once again, just want to give a big thank you to our sponsor of the show today, Yankee Cap, Long Range Fishing. He's actually out of Stock Island, but we say Key West because everybody knows Key West. But if you want to get out to Pulley Ridge, Halfway Ledge, or the Dry Tortugas and catch an epic fish of a lifetime, that's the boat to be on. So thank you to the Yankee Caps for sponsoring the show today. Big thank you to Captain Ron Schatman for coming on the show. Super cool.
Legend.
I'm telling you guys. Ooh. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Yeah.
Tapping Bottom with Johnny Jigs.